Today, we're going to be going over the VSTACK function. The VSTACK function is a very powerful function to consolidate multiple datasets into one vertical dataset. This function is often used together with a unique function to return one unique dataset for analysis purposes. One caveat is that this function is only available in the newer versions of Excel, so if you're not using Microsoft 365, you may not be able to use this function. To study this function, we're going to go over a case where we need to analyze actual and the budget data for license cost for each vendor. We're provided the financials for actuals and budget for license cost for June year to date, and an analysis template for us to use for the analysis. So let's get started. The very first thing that we have to do is return a unique list of vendors from the actuals and the budget. The issue is that we need to generate a list of vendors from both sources of actuals and the budget. If we only capture one source, we run into the risk that the list of vendors may not be complete, because there may be vendors in one source that doesn't exist in the other. For example, we can see that under actuals, we have a vendor by the name of Qualcomm, but if we take a look at the budget, we don't have that vendor. So if we only capture the vendor from the budget, we would not be capturing actuals cost related to Qualcomm. As a result, we need to consolidate the vendor list from the actuals and the budget, and then begin our analysis from there. If you were to do this manually, you would have to copy the vendor from actuals, and then copy the vendor from the budget, and then you would have to remove duplicates manually, like this, and you would have your full list of vendors. However, we can automate this. We're going to be using the VSTACK function to efficiently consolidate the list of vendors from both sources. Let's zoom in here a little bit. So we would VSTACK, and we can see that the inputs for this function are simply arrays that you want to consolidate. All you have to do is select the range that you want to group. So for array 1, I'm going to the actuals data and select the list of vendors. And then for array 2, I want to go to the budget and then select the list of vendors there. And when I press enter, we now have a full list of vendors from the actuals and the budget. However, we have a total of 1,396 vendors because we have a lot of duplicates in the mix. To get rid of duplicates and to return only unique values, I'm going to layer on the unique function on top of the VSTACK, which will then return me 40 unique vendors from both sources. Now to capture the data, under actuals, I'm going to SUMIFS the debit by the vendor, and then for the budget, I'm going to SUMPRODUCT the budget data, because the data is not in a tabular format, where the vendor equals the vendor that we're analyzing. And from here, we can already see that we have a lot of vendors that exist in actuals that don't exist in the budget. And this is primarily because when you set up the budget, you don't have the full insight of which vendors you're actually going to go for. So you're going to be making high-level assumptions. Sometimes you might not even budget to a specific vendor, and etc. However, under actuals, as we begin realizing which vendors we want to service, we may be servicing vendors that we previously have not budgeted for. This is a very common occurrence whenever you look at vendor-specific data between actuals and the budget. And then for the variance, I'm actually going to do budget minus actuals, because an underspend in actuals is actually favorable for our net income. And then variance percentage, we're going to divide the delta by the base budget figure. And then let's just set up an if error. Let's just return 0. And with this, we have our analysis by vendor for the actuals and the budget cost. And you can see how efficient this was by using the VSTACK function. And as we add more entries with new vendors into this data, We can design a formula to be dynamic to automatically update to capture for new vendors as the data grows. I hope this video helped you gain insight to how useful the VSTACK function could be and potentially find an area in your own workflow to incorporate this function. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I'm going to be uploading more educational content, so follow for more.